Hi and welcome back to the Titanic build. In this episode I'll be piecing together both the forecastle deck and also the forward well deck. As with the poop deck, the first thing to do was remove a lot of the raised areas and fill in some of the areas as per the KA set instructions. I'm also removing the forward hatch cover and replacing it with a more detailed version which I bought from China 3D. Once the old hatch cover was removed, I started the tedious job of replacing all the doors, but before I removed the old ones, I put a line under each one so it helped getting the correct height when installing the KA doors later. I then installed the switch type components which go on the front wall of the forward well deck. They're really easy to do as they're attached to a piece of photo etch which, once the switches are actually glued in place, you just bend it back and forth until it snaps off. There is a pipe with two brackets which I installed by pre-bending some brass rods into shape before gluing it down. This is included in the KA set. Once I had the shape and glued it into place, I then had to make the brackets, which I did by using an off-cut piece of brass rod to bend the bracket around first. The next bits to add was these steps, which was just a case of bending the photo etch in half and gluing them down just below the doors. Now all the photo etch was installed, I could start painting. All photo etch was pre-painted with metal prep before putting the primer on. The anchor well was painted basalt grey, and then I painted it with scale colours white, and the bottom half to make the dark mast I've used an orange rust from Vallejo. As before, I used Gorilla Wood glue to install the scale decks, and then I used clamps and some batteries for weight while the glue sets. I then started work on the deck furniture by piecing together the fair leads. I also used some brass rod to make the pipe between the windlass and the windlass brake winches. I then made the breakwaters by gently bending the support legs over and folding the top part down, which then makes the handrail, paying particular attention to make sure that this bit was all flush along the top. Next I added handles and legs for the tent, which I believe housed the winch. I used blue tack to get the tiny parts into position and then added some glue. Once the glue set, I gently removed the blue tack. I got this idea from the Model Boat Guy's YouTube channel. If you haven't seen it, it's worth a watch. I then built the winches, starting with the chains on the side before adding the drums. I found it easy to use my hands with things like this rather than tweezers, and once the glue starts to set, I quickly position the drums to get them straight. This is another tip I use from the Model Boat Guys videos, and that's to use this stuff called Masco on the tops of the capstans. You sort of paint it on, and once it's dried, you then do your bit of painting, spray painting around it, and then it just peels off afterwards, leaving the areas that you've masked free of paint. Once everything was ready, I could start painting. I'm using Robert Reed's research, and I'm hoping I'm pronouncing it correctly, but Vasily Ristovich's renderings for paint references, which is why I'm painting my witnesses and capstans the chromate green from Scale Colours, the same as what the winches are. Any black was painted using NATO black to give a sort of dull metal effect, although the hatch cover was painted more of a satin black. One thing to note, which I had to fix later, was the back of the hatch needs to be white to match the breakwaters. The tents were painted a light grey, and then I picked out the handles and legs with black later. I also did the same with the breakwater legs, which are the dark mast colour. Now we could start assembling. All of the heavy equipment sat on concrete bases, so these were painted grey before installing. There are also a couple of mini signs to install on the breakwaters which come in the KA set. For the anchor chains, I bought 3D printed ones from Shapeways, and to get them into the holes I used a bit of string to gently pull them through before gluing them in place. Once they were glued, I then added filler underneath to block any light coming up through the hose pipes. I then built the centre anchor from China 3D and added the K8 details to it, which included a shackle at the top and which looks to be some sort of lifting eye in the centre. Once the anchor was glued down, it's hard to show, but there are a couple of U-shaped brackets which need to be installed, which would have held the anchor in place. Now I installed the anchor lashings which keep the anchor chains locked in position. I found it easier to cut these in half before fitting one to each side. Once the glue had set, I then lifted the bits that glue to the deck up slightly and applied some glue before sticking them down and making sure they looked even each side. Lastly, for the Forecastle, I added what I think are the capstan control valves. There are a few more parts to add to the Forecastle still, but I'll add these on later on in the build. Next I moved onto the forward well deck. I had already removed the raised areas before gluing the scale decks down. Again, I'm using the KA hatch covers, although I have since replaced these since doing this video with the China 3D ones because they look a bit better, they're a bit more correct. So again, the kit hatch wall needs to be removed. One thing I was quite proud of is I've hollowed out the underside of one of the hatch covers to fit a on-off switch and charging point. It's just so I don't need to open the boat up too often. I just need to work out a way of topping up the smoke fluid without having to remove the superstructure. And that's pretty much it for this episode. I'll try and get on to the next video soon. The superstructure is built, the B-deck interior is basically complete. So hopefully I shouldn't take too long getting the next video up. Once again, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.